Hello and welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm Bill Hirschman, the editor of FloridaTheaterOnStage.com, and I'm your host tonight. Let's meet our panel. We start with Miss Iris Acker, who is an actress, writer, and the producer of our program here. Karen Stevens, an award-winning actress and writer. And sitting in for playwright Michael McKeever tonight is playwright Dan Clancy. Our guest today, and we are so proud to have him, is Lou Tyrell, whose resume is about as long as I-95, but is currently heading up the theater lab housed at Florida Atlantic University. Welcome, Lou.
Thank you.
Only as long as I-95?
Well, that's a fun little comment.
Well, but it's moving much better than the traffic on I-95.
Oh, thank you.
Tell us about your current incarnation at FAU and the Theater Lab.
Sure. Theater Lab is the resident professional theater at FAU, and it is a perfect marriage of that really represents a relationship that goes back over 20 years. We at Florida Stage gave internships to graduating students from FAU for years and years, and some of those students not only gained professional experience in every aspect of the theater and were able to have a bridge from academia into the professional arena, but many of them also became employees of Florida Stage.
Uh-huh.
And so when Florida Stage closed, it came full circle. Conversation began soon after I had established the program at Arts Garage, and 4 years into that, a conversation began with the folks at Florida Atlantic University, and it just seemed like the right move to make, to have a professional theater right on campus where the students could get involved as appropriate, the community could come and participate with the development of some of the best new work in American theater.
Well, that's what you should probably explain is, first of all, that this is a professional theater.
Yes.
And that number two, talk about the mission, the idea of new work, what you've been doing since you opened it and where you want to take it.
Sure. Well, the name Theater Lab really is a result of the idea of creating a laboratory experience for the development of new work. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, as we know as colleagues over all these years through the tenure of Florida Stage, new work has always been my passion, and we were able to produce 150 new plays during the 24 years at Florida Stage. Well, that legacy can continue, and I think even more appropriately on a campus where the mission of the university is to provoke thought, and because we do issue-oriented plays, thought-provoking new plays, it's the perfect place for that to happen. The impact, though, is multi-layered. Because we also have an extensive education outreach program, we bring thousands of middle school students, high school students onto campus to see plays and then to go through an in-depth series of workshops to learn the fundamentals of playwriting. And 1,000 kids seeing a play will result in 1,000 monologues that they will write about a similar issue to the play that they've just seen. And then we will hone that in down to 30 of those that will be selected to result in a student production of these children, not to create actors, but really to create analytical thinkers, to help them find their own voice as a human being, and to gain the opportunity to work with professionals to create their own work and see it come to life. So that's one layer, the educational aspect there. Those kids can also, having come on campus, they'll look at the campus as a whole and go, wow, I could come here. And that's a great plus as well, because it introduces them to what the next level of education might be, whether it's FAU or another university. It can be a home. It can be a welcoming environment. Then the kids who go to Florida Atlantic University, of course, the theater students, be they undergraduate or graduate students, they are coming and working with us as appropriate, as young actors or technicians, assistant directors, assistant stage managers. They get the experience of, in addition to their academic training, they get the experience of working with seasoned professionals like Karen in a professional context, and on a new play that is just being developed as a part of our program. In addition to that, the university, and of course the community impact, it can be expansive because we're available to everyone in the community to come and be a member of our audience. But also the university is made up of 10 colleges. And which is a spectrum of study in every conceivable department and course of study that they offer. Well, the themes of the plays that we do often relate to various courses of study, be it science or medicine, history, education, women's studies, and so it's relevant to many departments across these 10 colleges. Well, we've always heard about how at universities, different departments and colleges don't necessarily talk to each other. They're so busy doing the work and the great good work of their own departments that they end up, they use the term siloed, and because it's so common. Well, having a theater, a professional theater on campus, doing plays with issues that run the gamut of the various departments and courses of study gives a chance for the extraordinary brain trust at Florida Atlantic University to come together. For example, if you do a play about a woman scientist at the turn of the 20th century, well, there's the historical element, there's the science element, there's the issue of women dealing with male-dominated science at that time and making their way in their career and in the world. And so it has this great value of bringing all of those people who have various interests and expertise into the theater to begin conversations among themselves.
But I'm hearing, I'm sorry.
We need to make one thing clear, that in the last season, you've been doing staged readings. When you say put on a play, you're not putting on scenery and costumes at all. Or
not
are
yet,
you?
but we will.
Make that clear.
The whole thing is that's leading up to just that. You sound like an educator. You don't sound like the old Lou that I'm listening to. Okay. But again, to your audience.
Sure.
I mean, you left Manalapan.
Yes.
And went to Kravis Center, and then to Arts Garage.
Yes.
What happened to that audience? Are they following you?
Yes, many of them are.
That's what I was very curious
Well,
about.
we all believe, all of us in the theater, that more is better, and that we're all colleagues in a community trying to create a cultural personality with all the various programs and missions that all the theaters have. So having had a chance to, of course, all those years at Florida Stage, it kind of speaks for itself, but then the opportunity at Arts Garage to try to determine what is the new model, both financially and artistic, after the economic downturn, after the loss of the World War II generation. How do we rebuild an audience for the theater, whatever kind of theater the mission is? In our case, new work. It's a little harder. The audience for thought-provoking new work is smaller today. So we're now in that rebuilding mode. Again, a perfect reason to be on a college campus, because that's where the next generation is coming of age.
Dan was sitting with a playwright here.
Okay, as a playwright, what attracts you to new plays?
The developmental process. Any theater that I've been associated with or that I founded will always have the playwright at the center of the program. our mission is to help the originating artist create their work in any way that we can, be that support. If you use the parallel of visual art and that first paint that a painter puts on the canvas, this blank canvas, and the playwright's gone through the process of developing a play. It could be in weeks, it could be in years that it's taken, as you so well know, for a play to get to that point where first life is now going to be breathed into those words and those characters and the telling of that story. So to be a part of the process that helps a playwright realize the full development of their play, there's nothing more exciting in my mind.
When you read a new piece, what makes you say yes to it?
You know, it's that, as we know, different plays are, each one is a new journey, a different journey. Stylistically, they're all different. It's a great new adventure in its own way. And I think you know, and I experience this even more with less hair, but when the hair on the back of your neck stands up in the reading of a play, you just know it's one that you want to help produce.
Yeah.
And how are you getting submissions? Like, say, Dan has a play that it has to.
Yes.
I was going to say, if he has a play that's
She's going to get a
he
commission.
would like read. Although, does it have to be absolutely not performed anyplace else?
No, not at all, because it's
Oh.
important to do the second production and the third production of a play for a playwright. Sometimes it's easier to get
Yes.
that first production. If you have a name like Dan does, immediately people are interested. Normally theaters have a submission policy, and it's based on the staff that you have, the ability to read plays, a number of plays during the course of a year. So if I'm the one that's reading a play or a stack of plays, and I know that I can only really do justice to 200 to 300 plays a year by reading them, if you have an open submission policy, you're going to get 500, 1,000, thousands of plays submitted, and it's not doing a justice to any playwright to have that meant to be inundated and then not be able to get to the play. I already have enough trouble keeping up. So you do have a submission policy where you might say, please have your agent submit the play, another artistic director from a different theater. Obviously, if you have a relationship pre-existing with a playwright, then that's all the policy you need. Someone with Dan's name and extraordinary background and talent, that submission policy is not required. We would be honored, delighted to read anything of his work and to help in any way we could to develop the new work coming out of his mind and imagination. But there is a policy for, so that you can be gracious as possible. For every play you select, there are 100 playwrights that are not being selected, so you're not making a lot of people happy. It's one of
What
the hard.
about your talent and your actors? You're making them happy? I mean, is it as open as it was before?
Yeah.
For auditions? And
Right. Yes, well, I mean,
etc.
again, you're only an actor is only happy when they receive that wonderful call that says, "Please come and play with us in the next production." It's hard. This is a tough field, which is why in our education program, we're not trying to create actors. All children are naturally actors and expressive. We're trying to tap that expression, develop their creative writing skills, their analytical thinking, and help them find who they are, find out who they are in the world. Communication skills, cooperative behavior, a sense of self-esteem. These are all things that happen when we do theater with young people. And it's really no different with as people get older, whether it's just the audience coming to a play and being transported, they discover who they are to some degree by the experience that they have. And of course, the artists working together, from the originating artist, the playwright, through the collaboration between actors and directors and designers, and then that ultimate experience of the play and the audience, who is the final character of any play when it's being performed.
I've been fortunate, excuse me, fortunate enough to be on this ride with you for a while, as far as being an actor in plays that have been developed under your
that would be my great good fortune. But yeah. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, there was a time there when I was wondering if anyone would ever, they would think I was making up titles of plays that I put on my resume because so many of them were new works.
At Florida Stage, yeah.
But so, you know, being there at the inception, being there for a couple of world premieres and also the second performance of a few plays, it's a very exciting time for a playwright, for an actor, for a producer, director. Can you talk about a little bit about that process, that once that play comes into your hands and the actors are in place, the playwright is in place, what comes next when you're developing that work?
Right, sure. Well, from the moment you and the playwright decide that you're going to collaborate on bringing their play to life, that may be a year before we actually do it. And so then the question is, who's going to be the creative team, which would include the designers, the director, the actors, and the playwright. In our case, in the not-for-profit professional theater world, the idea is that you want to provide the playwright every opportunity, every final decision on what that is. I mean, if there's a good relationship, he or she will trust your judgment as a director or a producer of a play as well, and it's as much a collaboration as the work that ends up on the stage. But through that year process, then the creative team is being selected, and then the designers submit design work after much discussion, study of the play, always with the playwright at the center, to clarify their intention of every moment and every aspect of the world of the play. And then, of course, as the play is cast and you get closer to the rehearsal process, it's that wonderful moment, that first day of rehearsal, and we've shared that so many times, where you're sitting there in the room and the first thing that occurs to you as the director is, thank God for all of you and for this opportunity together to have this magical experience of bringing a play to life for the very first time, or the second time or third time, all still so important to the playwright, because the work that they are doing, there's at one point, of course, we all know, you have to freeze the work that you do on a play. So say 2 weeks into a 4-week rehearsal period, you have to stop rewriting and giving new material to the actors so that they can do the work. and do the work, make those final decisions, be released in the work that they do, to give the playwright the best version of that play. But there might be still scene work or character work that the playwright wants to continue to do, and that would show itself in a second production.
You sound like a playwright's dream.
But it's interesting.
Really, it does.
Thank you.
The atmosphere.
You have taught, certainly me, and I think scores and scores, thousands actually, of your patrons a completely different way of looking at theater, in the sense of many people were raised going to see shows on Broadway or tours that were frozen, in some cases 40 years earlier.
Sure.
And they've been polished to a high sheen, and the playwright's been through it forever and ever. But you taught people to look at new work as this is a work in progress, and you are seeing it, and you are blessed with being able to see it in the early parts of it, and to learn not to judge work the same way, to be open to it. How did you manage to convince, particularly at Florida Stage, a group of people who are used to seeing The Music Man or Long Day's Journey into Night, and instead seeing something that, you know, is still a work in progress, and yet they were happy with it, accepted it?
Yeah, well, I think the idea is that you want everybody to understand that theater is an art form first, just like visual art, music, dance. The best way to do that is for them to understand the developmental process of a play and to go through that process with you. So it's not just they're coming to one of 3 or 4 or 5 plays that you're doing in a season. They're coming to play readings all during the season. They may be in on a workshop, which is a little longer process once you've decided to, from a reading process, to take it and invest in the piece and the playwright in the play a little more with a 2-week process, and then ultimately in a full production. And we're working against some conditions that people are conditioned from typically the hit flop mentality that comes out of New York, say. And they read the critics' reviews and it's either thumbs up or thumbs down. And no work of art is black and white like that. There are extraordinary layers of character, of relationship, of scene structure, that go into the storytelling. And you want people to understand that all of that is a part of an art form, a living, breathing, fluid process that is never the same one night to the next. And which is why we do 20 performances or many more of a given play. We learn so much from every different audience that attends, and every different remaking of that work. So yes, it is an educational process. We had an extraordinary audience for new work in the theater back in the 80s and 90s, again with the World War II generation, who were the most adventurous minds imaginable, and they came for the ride. And that helped the 8-year-olds. They would see their grandparents responding to a play, and they would make it their own. And of course, the parents in the middle of that mix. Now we're at a point where the audience for thought-provoking new work is smaller, and we're having to ignite that passion that they might have. And we're doing it this year at Theater Lab with play readings, with musical concert readings. And next year, after a renovation of our new space that the FAU has given us, we'll be able to fully produce in that space. So next year it'll be readings and concert readings and the education outreach program and our playwrights forum, but it'll also be fully produced season of plays. So the best is yet to come.
Where does the reviewer fit in? Are you still going to invite reviewers to...
The reviewers are our most important colleagues, because we can try to educate our audience and the community about what we're trying to do, but without the educated critic, without the men of and women of the theater who have gone the critical route to be our partners. And yeah, sometimes it's tough love, you know, because they're not going to love everything. But if they love the theater, they're going to present it in a way that won't turn people off to the art form. They'll present it in a way that engages the audience, makes them want to come see what might not have worked in a play, in fact. You know, because we all are passionate and love the theater. So the relationship between directors and producers and playwrights and critics and actors, while it may be a little bit complicated, it's a very important and valuable relationship.
I'm going to ask Dan a question. Listening to all this, our playwright, I would love you to react to what he's saying with a play that you might have.
Well, first of all, I just want to applaud you, Lou. I mean, most directors don't play it, most directors play it safe, and you don't. And to give the opportunity for playwrights to have a home, and I think that's basically what playwrights really need. They need a home where they can have a safe environment to help develop a piece. Right. And that's what you do. But I do have a question in terms of directing. When you direct a new play, is it very different from directing, let's say, a standard piece?
Yeah, well, I think you're approaching a work for the first time. So, you know, in one sense, you're off the hook because there's nothing that anybody can compare it to. You know, performances that may have happened years and years past. But what you're saying about an artistic home, I think, is such an important thing to leave this wonderful conversation on that you have allowed me to have with you, and I thank you so much for this opportunity. But creating an artistic home for the playwright, for a community of theater professionals, including the designers, directors, actors, and for the children coming along, is the most important work that we can do. And to have that opportunity at FAU to create Theater Lab as a professional resident theater is going to define in many ways for our area where we can take theater in the years to come.
And I couldn't have asked for a better exit line. Thank you ever so much. It felt like it was bold-faced. We want to thank Lou. We want to thank the wonderful panel, and mostly we want to thank you for coming and seeing us week after week. And if you want to know what else is going on, and we want you to go to as much theater as possible, check out the calendar on FloridaTheaterOnStage.com. But join us here next week for an equally fascinating, I don't know if it could be equally fascinating, but a fascinating conversation on Spotlight on the Arts. Thank you and good night.